Bluehost review, untangling the pros and cons of this very popular web host. Let's get started. What's up, everybody? I hope you're having a great day. My name is David, and I'm a real person. I'm a real human being. This is not some faceless YouTube channel with some AI voice talking about how amazing and incredible Bluehost is. Instead, I'm an actual Bluehost customer, and I've used them to build websites over the last few years, and this review is based on actually using Bluehost to build websites with. I'm going to be breaking down the pros and cons of Bluehost because there are good things and there are plenty of bad things with Bluehost that you need to be aware of. My goal overall is just to make a helpful review video to help you make a purchase decision whether or not Bluehost is right for you. Like always, make sure to check the links in the description for timestamps and resources mentioned in this video. So let's begin. So, a high-level overview of what Bluehost is. They are both a web host and a domain name registrar, and they've been recommended by the team behind WordPress for literally a decade. You get good hosting, a free domain name for the first year, and I would describe them as trying to be sort of like the Squarespace of WordPress right now. That's the kind of direction that they've kind of changed and they're going into. Instead of just being like a general web host for all types of sites powered by multiple content management systems, they're really just becoming focused on WordPress and building out services to help complete beginners build their websites. So what are the pros of using Bluehost? Why do people still go with Bluehost today? So the first pro I would bring up with Bluehost is that they are actually recommended by the team behind WordPress and have been so for over 10 years. Now remember, you got to put yourself in the place of a complete beginner. Like if you've never had a blog, website, or online store, you have no idea what web host to go with. So seeing that recommendation from WordPress makes you feel comfortable making a purchase decision with Bluehost. So with your Bluehost account, you do get a completely free domain name for the first year. After the first year, you do have to pay a renewal rate. But if you're just getting started and you want to kind of dip your toes into creating websites, blogs, online stores, Bluehost is a good option because they do provide you a free domain name for the first year. Good web hosting with a 99.8% uptime. So I actually have websites on Bluehost, and that is the uptime. They do provide an adequate hosting solution for complete beginners. Now, I would equate this as like, look, you don't need a Ferrari to drive down the street to go to the store. Bluehost is made for the complete beginner who has a brand new website with no traffic. And for that traffic level, I would say maybe 50,000 visitors a month or less, Bluehost is totally fine, totally adequate for that requirement. Beginner-friendly interface and onboarding process. So there's no denying that Bluehost is made for a complete beginner. The interface when you have your Bluehost account is very simple and streamlined, uncomplicated, and to create a website with your Bluehost account is so simple. All you have to do is click on two buttons where you're thrown into the onboarding process where you're asked a bunch of different questions. At the end of all these questions, you have a custom designed website based on your inputs. So in my opinion, this is a big selling point for Bluehost because beginners don't understand web hosting and web hosting interfaces like cPanel or Plesk. So having something that's simple and easy for complete beginners is quite useful. Creating a custom email for your domain name is very simple with Bluehost. Now with other web hosts, you have to dive into cPanel, which has a very dated looking interface and a lot of different options. Then you have to find where it says email, then jump into that email client to create a custom email. And it's all a little bit confusing and dated. Bluehost streamlines everything by just giving you one simple option, cPanel email. You click on cPanel email and then boom, you're in the interface and you can create a custom email very easily. Now remember, this is for complete beginners who just want to create a custom email because I've worked with people and like, that's just all they want. And like, I want to set up a custom email. It doesn't need to be anything complicated. I just want hello at my website. And with Bluehost, you can do exactly that very easily. Temporary domain names. So I really like that with Bluehost, you can either sign up to Bluehost without using a domain name you own or registering a domain name through Bluehost and instead just use a temporary domain name. You can also use temporary domain names when you're creating a website if you just want to play around with a theme or an idea for a website. Then once you're ready to set a custom domain name for your website, it's simple enough. Finally, they do have very competitive introduction rates for web hosting. So this combined with a free domain name for the first year makes Bluehost an overall competitive package if you're just getting started. And like I said earlier, if you just want to dip your toes proverbially and maybe create a website, blog, online store, run it for a year, see how things go, Bluehost offers a very cost-effective option with a great introduction rate for their hosting plans, as well as that free domain name. Now it's time for the cons. What are some things about Bluehost that I don't like? Where to begin? So first off, is that free domain name? While it's okay on paper, in my opinion, it's not really free because they waive the fee for the first year. Because remember, when you get a domain name, what you're doing is you're registering the domain name. You can't buy a domain name outright. So Bluehost waives that fee for the first year, and after that year, you have to pay a renewal rate. Bluehost, in my opinion, is very expensive with the renewal rate and much more expensive than other domain name registrars. For example, I use Namecheap as my personal domain name register for all my domain names, and they offer much lower renewal rates than Bluehost. Bluehost also charges for Whois protection, whereas Namecheap provides that for free. So Whois protection keeps your personal information private. So when you register a domain name, you have to provide accurate information like your name, email, phone number, address, and so forth. Whois protection just keeps all of that personal information private. So in my opinion, Whois protection is not really optional. You do need Whois protection. So overall, domain names at Bluehost end up getting quite expensive with their high renewal rate and the fact that they charge for Whois protection. So as an alternative, I definitely recommend going with Namecheap for all your domain names. When trying to set up a domain name that's at Namecheap with Bluehost, I did find it a little bit confusing. So first off, when I was purchasing a Webhost account, I selected use a domain name I own. And then once I did that and I clicked on next, just to proceed to the next page, it did pop up saying like, that domain name is not available. Please search again. It's like, yeah, no kidding, it's not available. I own it at Namecheap. I'm using a domain name I own. The error message though did get fixed, and I tried it again and it did work correctly where it just got added to the carts. Now, once I actually went through the process of creating a website with Bluehost and using a domain name I own, what ended up happening is that it created the website on a temporary domain name, which is totally fine. But the main issue is that it never switched it over to the custom domain name that I selected. I literally had to go into the settings within the WordPress dashboard and manually type in HTTPS, then the domain name that it's supposed to be. If you're a complete beginner, that is incredibly confusing. If you don't know WordPress and you don't understand anything about how this works, that is just completely counterintuitive that I have to manually go into WordPress and force change the domain name from a temporary domain name to the domain name that I selected as I was creating the account within Bluehost's onboarding process. So overall, it definitely seems like Bluehost is gearing you towards registering a domain name through them, because if you have your domain name at Bluehost and you're going through their onboarding process, it just works as expected. You just select the domain name that you want to add onto your website that you're creating, and it just works. So again, it's totally up to you what you want to do. I just don't recommend using Bluehost as a domain name registrar because I do find them quite expensive when compared to Namecheap. So I would prefer to use Namecheap for my domain names, Bluehost for my hosting account. So I don't like that combining these two services is a little bit needlessly confusing for a complete beginner. The onboarding process is forced upon logging into your account for the very first time. I just find that incredibly confusing. I just signed up to your hosting plan and I want to take a look at my dashboard and kind of click around for the first time and no, I can't. Boom, we're creating a website right now. It's like, whoa, okay, here we go. Also with the onboarding process, it's non-skippable, which I really don't like. So after you go through the onboarding process for the first time, then you're able to navigate back to your Bluehost dashboard to add on websites. It's very easy, as I stated in the beginning. However, the only issue I have is that every single time you add a website, you have to go through this onboarding process. The issue is that this onboarding process uses the Wonder theme and creates a custom design, and it's all just a little bit annoying. Particularly once you start to know what you're doing, you just want to install WordPress and design your website using a theme that you want. I don't like that they force the Wonder theme on you every single time you go to create a website. Another issue with that onboarding process that I don't like is that it automatically sets your username, password, and email. So then you have to manually navigate to your WordPress settings and change everything. And I also just don't like that I don't have control over my username. I'm stuck with a username that just Bluehost arbitrarily makes up. Maybe not a big deal, but I do find that a little bit inconvenient. Again, like I said, Bluehost is trying to be sort of the Squarespace of WordPress, and they really want you to log into your Bluehost account. And then once you log into your account, then you can log into your website. So everything is geared to do that. So trying to log into your website manually, the way you're kind of supposed to by going to WP-admin is just not that it's not encouraged, but it's just not made intuitive. Constant upsells for SiteLock. Now, I don't mind upsells. Like when you're buying a web hosting account with Bluehost and you select the Choice Plus account, it does come up with a pop-up with saying, hey, maybe you would prefer this plan instead. Business is business, and I don't mind a business trying to just upsell their customers to make more money. What I do find annoying is that because Bluehost kind of gears you towards logging into Bluehost every time you want to log into your account, they constantly have an upsell for site lock. And personally, I just find that annoying every single time I log into Bluehost. I have to see this site lock upsell page. I prefer just to let me log into my account, let me log into my WordPress dashboard so I can access my site and other services. Claim your free domain name was not working as expected. So when purchasing a shared hosting account with Bluehost, you can either register a domain name through Bluehost and that fee will be waived for the first year, or you can use a domain name you own. So what happens if you don't claim your free domain name? What ends up happening is that you'll get an email saying, hey, claim your free domain name. So I clicked on that link, it took me to Bluehost, and then I had to pay for a domain name, which I was utterly confused because the offer is a free domain name. Why do I have to pay for this? So once again, I contacted support asking for help, and their answer was just buy the domain name and we'll refund you the price. I'm not crazy about that because free means free. Free doesn't mean I pay for it first and then you just refund my credit card later. The onboarding process was not working correctly, so it ends up building a custom theme with the Wonder theme, and I think it looks great. Just two issues. There's no header and there's no footer. It's just not working as corrected. So like when you're logged out of your website, you'll see a header and a footer that's not stylized in any way. But when you're logged into your account and you're accessing your website with the full site editor from WordPress, the header and the footer are nowhere to be found. And also when you're going through the onboarding process with Bluehost's proprietary WordPress website builder, the header section just doesn't load. Like I don't get it. I don't know why it's not working.
And there we go. So this is supposed to be the header section, and I have not experienced this working yet. After using Bluehost for the past month, this section doesn't work. I don't know why. I don't know what's going on.
So I contacted support about this and support let me down. And they just told me like, hey, contact the theme maker. What do you mean contact the theme maker? Like you're forcing me to use this theme and it's your own onboarding process that's not working. So personally, I don't get it. If this onboarding process works, I think it's really great. And I think it's a really good offering for a complete beginner. But for my testing, the header and the footer are just not working. And for me, that's a complete deal breaker. In part because you're forced to use this onboarding process every single time you go to create a website. Then you just end up with a website that you just have to delete anyways because it doesn't have a header section with a logo and a menu, and it doesn't have a footer section that you can adjust. So it's like, what's the point of this onboarding process?
So this is an update from David in the future. So the header section finally started working after literally a month of this section not working. So it is actually loading. So there's multiple headers over here. So I'm quite happy to see this, that you have the ability to select different layouts. And you also have the footer down here, which is finally properly designed as well. Then you can just edit and adjust this with the WordPress full site editor.
And finally, my last con is the price. So there's no denying that Bluehost has increased their price points quite a bit over the years. They used to be a very good, cheap web host for brand new WordPress website users, but again, they've just slowly, incrementally increased their price points over time. On top of that, they've kind of reduced their features as well. So with the Choice Plus plan, you used to get unlimited websites. Now you're limited to 3 websites. So while they do have very competitive introduction rates and a free domain name for the first year, I think long-term Bluehost is a little bit expensive once you get past that introduction rate. So if you are going with Bluehost, I do recommend using A, Namecheap as your domain name registrar, and B, Bluehost, register a 36-month plan to lock in that low rate for 3 years. Then after your 3-year plan, then you can make a decision whether or not you want to stick to Bluehost or move to a different web host. Okay, so let's wrap this up. I've changed my recommendation from Bluehost over to DreamHost. DreamHost is another highly recommended web host by the team behind WordPress. Like Bluehost, DreamHost offers a free domain name, but unlike Bluehost, they provide free WHOIS protection. They also provide good hosting just like Bluehost for websites that are at 50,000 visitors or less. I also like the support more at DreamHost than Bluehost. There were many times with my Bluehost account where support just was not able to help me with a Bluehost issue, like the domain name and creating a website with the onboarding process using the Wonder theme. DreamHost also has an excellent introduction rate just like Bluehost for brand new accounts. Then for higher traffic websites, I do recommend WPX Hosting. That is my current web host for my websites. Okay everyone, that's it for this Bluehost review video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, consider subscribing. My name is David. I'm a real person. Thank you very much for watching and have a great day. Bye-bye.